Milsurp Garage, back with you. Hello, everyone. So, what are we doing now? We're trampolining off the Winchester Model 1886 from our last video. Right up ahead, let's move up ahead a couple of chapters. We're skipping the 1892. The 1892 is kind of like the 1886, but in a smaller cartridge, more like pistol cartridges. People were like, we love this 1886, but we want a smaller gun. So it was like a smaller cartridge. Then, a little of this, a little of that, and then bang, here we are, the 1894. This is the gun. We could end this whole Winchester lever action thing right here with this guy. This is what's going to happen. This is like, we're going to run right up against the wall here. And whatever else I have that's along this path, we could just cut those branches off the tree. They might be little collector niches here and there, but this is what did it right here. This one isn't even that old. I mean, they did, of course, Winchester came out with this thing in 1894. This is a 1951 version of this gun. So, back then, like when this thing first came out, it came out in 94. And the calibers that were available were like 3855, which was a Winchester cartridge, and 3240. Those are like cartridges from like 1885 and 1886. And so, if you get these older examples, you're not really going to be able to use them. And then, what happened with this thing was this thing basically just became the deer gun. That's it. This thing is just the deer gun. And the Winchester 30 caliber, or I guess it was called 30 WCF, that's basically 30-30. That became the cartridge too. Like everything just filtered down to just be like perfection right here. And like the size of this thing, if you take a look, this is like a very carbine kind of size. And you're like, well, how are we getting a full-size cartridge out of one that, like that Browning scaled down the 1893 to be kind of like for like that, like a handgun cartridge? How did we do that? It's kind of like a medium-sized cartridge. Like here's the 30-30. It's kind of like a medium-sized cartridge. And the 3855 and the 3240, which they were originally chambered in, were similar-sized cartridges. So, it's not quite as big as a 3006. But not small either, like a handgun cartridge. So how did he do this? You know what I mean? How are we gonna be chambering these in something this size to fit in here and be able to manipulate it to get it to work? And Browning's genius comes in here in that you're looking right away, this looks odd, in that it's not just the lever coming down, it's the whole bottom of the receiver is coming down to facilitate an angle here. Like if you had something here and it couldn't fit, you would turn it sideways to try to shoehorn it in. Like that's exactly what he did. And this brilliance, this design of this it kind of looks like when you first pick one of these up in cycle the action, you think maybe that you broke it. You know what I mean? The way it comes apart like that. And, of course, it does have the bolt moving across the top. But if you look in there, you see everything slanted. Where are we? Sorry. Everything slanted downwards in there when it opened up. You see that? To be able to facilitate getting a round of this size. I don't have inert rounds or snap caps, unfortunately. Not that you'd really see much, but there must be like some animated like things online where you could look at the actual functioning of it. I do have right up here on my screen. It's a shame that I can't turn you around to look at it. If I try to take the phone out of where I have it now, I know I'm going to be hitting buttons and turning it off. But I have the patent. Scroll to it right now. If you're in front of a computer or you want to look it up, I could give it to you. And the patent number is 524702. And these patents, I'm telling you, even if you're not into that where you really want to sit there and look at patent drawings or whatever, it couldn't hurt to just put that into a Google search and just do a search. Just put patent 524702. You could pull it up as a PDF, and then you look at them. And not only does it have the drawings, then it has the actual. It has it written out exactly what it was that was special about that gun. And at first they seem kind of gobbledygookish when you read those. The way the patents are written. It seems kind of like almost scientific, where you're like, don't get it at first, but when you get used to reading those things, you kind of it's kind of like the Matrix. You start to be able to pick out what's important and what they're talking about. And sometimes they talk about materials, sometimes they talk about specific designs and how they differ from what was originally out there. And it's actually interesting. It really is interesting to pick that up, trust me. But it talks about this a lot. I would pull that patent up and just take a look. So now, if you're going to look for one of these, to grab one of these, there's a thing about them that you're going to read and you're going to hear where it says pre-64, or they call it high wood, because the wood here, from this barrel band to the end of this piece up here, would be on ones that are made after 64. This is smaller, it's about that size. When you see high wood, means that this wood is a little bit longer. So an easy way to identify them by just looking. Of course, you could definitely be more specific and look for serial numbers, which are right here. When you start to get to know them, when you're looking for it specifically, you'll know what numbers you're looking for. And something about the pre-64 ones, there was some kind of change after 64 that supposedly they're not so great. Now, there must be a million of these things made from 1964 till now. I really don't think there's anything wrong with them, I'll be honest with you. But some people, they wanna just get that legendary thing, whatever was changed. I don't know, something about Winchester changing hands and this and that or whatever. So yeah, I guess if you really just want to have something historical and you really want to have, the best, some people will be happy driving a Cadillac. Some people just have to have a 59 Caddy. But you know what I mean? It is what it is. I wouldn't put down any of the other ones without specifically knowing that they had issues, and I really don't think that was the case. I just think that there's just a thing where the pre-64 ones are the coveted ones, you know what I mean? So if you're going to go out and get one, and it doesn't really matter to you, I wouldn't think you're crazy. But if you were going out to get one and you were like, I wouldn't get one unless it's a pre-64 one, I would completely understand that too. And I had heard that those were the ones that were the coveted ones, so I really wanted to get an old one of these, but I couldn't deal with those chamberings that I can't shoot. At least 30-30 here, I can go out and buy it and shoot it, so that's what happened. Like the 1886, I could get a 45-70, so I didn't have a problem with that, but I'm not searching down 32-40 ammo that I could use. And not only that, the 30-30, when that was finally used with these, whatever year that was, it was smokeless. Let me see. This is like 1902 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like right around the turn of the century. And once again, I got my book here. Just gotta give a props for this guy. The Winchester book by Mattis, M-A-D-I-S. And signed, of course. That's right. That's right, it's signed. I get a lot of information here. Look, I could show you some stuff. Let's just show you. Here's the chapter on the 94. Look at how we're going to talk about information. Look at all these different versions and options you can get. This beautiful scrolling and work on them, and engravings, different takedown ones that have, look, a carbine and a longer barreled. You can get both. How cool is that? You just decide how long you want your gun for the day and you swap it out. Some of them have, look, short magazines, no magazines, up around magazines. This one is full length. You see this one that's full length. It's the whole length of the barrel. I got some information, how many rounds it is. Let's for now look, and then you can tell it shows you like the knurling on the back of the hammer. Some of them have like kind of like a Dracula's head, kind of looking widow peak, if you could see that. And some of them don't, and it tells you like the different years, the different models. Here's another takedown version. obviously, look at this. It's just pages and pages here. It's insane, the amount of information on this rifle. I guess this is just one that, like, it's not so crazy old that there isn't a lot of history or information on it. It's like it's just new enough where there's just pages and pages of stuff, man. Look, I'll give you an example. Look, like I was reading this paragraph. I was like, let me brush up on this rifle so I could do a video and at least sound like I know what I'm talking about. And then I'm reading from the book, and I'm like, it's making my head spin. Listen to this. I'm going to read this to you, verbatim from the book. Rifling in the 1894 model barrels is so complex and varies so greatly with caliber and period of manufacture that for the sake of clarity, we must devote a little space to this feature of the arms. 6-groove rifling was used, with grooves from 1.5 to 3 times greater in width than the Lands. Twist varies from 1 turn in 14 inches to 1 turn in 22 inches. The calibers, which are smaller in diameter, have the sharper twist. Larger bores have more gradual twist. Production of the 3240 and 3855 barrels ceased in 1930, but some of these barrels remained on hand for many years, and in fact some of these barrels were sold as scrap in World War II. The 25-35 carbine barrels were dropped from the line in 1936, but production resumed in 1940 and continued to 1950, with the last of the barrels assembled on carbines in 1954. I'm like, that's it. I gotta stop. There's just an incredible amount of documentation for what they used and what options were available and what barrels and what. It's sheer insanity. But you could see that even in the early 30s, they're banging around with, these weird calibers and stuff like that. So even when you'd find these things from the 30s and into the 40s and stuff like that, like, pre-World War II ones, they're just in these calibers that are unobtainable. That, there's people out there that are like, I could find that, I could get you that ammo. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want some dusty box of ammo that's may or may not shoot either. If I'm gonna have one of these things that I'm gonna intend to shoot it, unfortunately I couldn't go with a real historical one because I definitely had to be concerned with having a modern caliber that I could shoot. So 1951 is where this guy comes from. This is a 7-round tubular magazine, 20-inch barrel, and that's all I got. See you later, guys. No, there's actually a couple of more interesting things. Let me see. Oh, look at this. This is kind of cool here. Where was it with the serial numbers? There was a thing on the serial numbers. Oh no, if I'm not going to find it. And now if I don't find this is going to be terrible. I should have marked it off on here. Because they gave away, like, number 1 million. And I wish I had something to vamp on while I was looking this up. Okay, here it is. I lied, I didn't find it yet. I just thought if I said that, it would just happen. They gave away, like, pivotal serial numbers. Okay. In 19... Oh, I don't know what year. Oh, yeah. In 1927, President Coolidge was given the 94 bearing serial number 1 million. And President Truman was given, in 1948, was given 1,500,000. And Eisenhower, doesn't say what year, was given number 2 million. So what do I have? I have 1,734,139. So somewhere between, like right in the middle of Truman getting his 1,500,048 and number 2 million given to Eisenhower. So you got to figure that would be, this is 51, so you got to figure that was given to Eisenhower in like 53, something like that. So this one is like, was manufactured right in between those two. But could you imagine 2 million of these things made by, the time Eisenhower was president? 2 million. That'll give you an idea of how many of these things were out, deer hunting with people. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, they got a half-cock position here to carry them nice and safe. They have that extractor that runs straight down the center of the barrel. How cool is that? I feel like it's just, nah, maybe that's a little too dark. Thought that might look better, but I don't know. Never could seem to get it together with the camera here. Another typical Milsurp Garage mess of a video. This is probably on the lower end of the spectrum of 1894 videos. It's the least amount of information, the most horrible lighting, the most terrible camera work. There you go. I do aim to please. Nice. I love how that looks in there. I love how this guy functions. What else? Where was I? Oh, one cool thing about these guys, it has a button here. You see this button? That when the, where is it? There it goes. So when the lever is fully closed, it gets compressed. When the lever is open, it lets go of that thing. That is a, is that what blocks the trigger? It can't be what blocks the trigger. Yeah, I guess it is. So what's weird about this thing is it acts almost kind of like a safety, because if this is just hanging down like that, and the trigger gets pushed, you see, look, it won't drop. Oh, it's not even back, the trigger, but look, it won't drop. See? So it's kind of like a Glock safety. It's like a trigger safety in a way. That just if it gets depressed, if it's in your pickup truck and it just gets hit, why? Because this is kind of like hanging. It's like when you put your hand through here and you squeeze, and you're holding the gun ready to shoot. That's when you're depressing that button. But if you're not actually in here and holding, and you're just kind of letting go, like just the gravity of it, just kind of like the way it sits, doesn't depress that button. See? So it's kind of like a trigger safety. That's kind of wild, right? I thought that was a little weird. Side loading gate. And this big single locking lug. You see that locking lug that fits into that mortise there? It's kind of like the 1886 in a way, but see how that comes up there and blocks the bolt? See that? It blocks the bolt and it sits right across there. And if you look, there's a little nub there for the hammer to hit, because it's now in between the bolt where the firing pin is to get hit and the hammer. It comes up in between the hammer and the firing pin, so it has to have a little nub on it to get hit by the hammer. See that? Pretty cool. So at half cock, that can't get struck. You definitely don't want to carry it like this, because as you can see, you're then sitting with the hammer on that piece, which is on the firing pin, which is the firing pin sitting on the primer of the round, of the chambered round. That's what the half cock position is for, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, there it is. This is a steel butt plate with this nice checkered finish on it. They have other ones that have like compartments back there, but they were like kind of rare. There's a lot of like rare options for these things. There's all little things that you could get from Winchester, from the factory, but if you read in the book, they say like this was available, but very, very rare. You hardly ever see one with this, with that. This one is just kind of like a run-of-the-mill. There's really nothing special about it. It doesn't even have any kind of checkering or anything here. Just very run-of-the-mill, basic version. It's what do we have on here? Let's see, can we see that? I'd like to show what it says. Model 94, 3030 Winchester. Yep. So this is just the quintessential deer gun. This is what it was all about. This is probably, the single most used hunting rifle ever. And the round that is the quintessential hunting round, 3030. Kind of like the power of a 303, kind of like feels like, but that's a feels like a decent, it feels like the round has a decent punch when you shoot it. It doesn't feel underpowered just by shooting it. When you shoot it, I'm saying. But I don't really have a tremendous amount of experience with the 30-30. Definitely more with the 306, 3006 or 308, 303. But yeah, you can't really judge rounds like this by their size because these were smokeless. They were designed as a smokeless powder round, and just because they're a little bit smaller doesn't mean that it is a 30 caliber bullet, and these things pack a punch. They'll take down deer. So there you go. And that's all she wrote. I could sit here. I swear, I really could just sit here and read from this book like I'm telling you a story, and give you all the history, but. I'll leave that up to you because what you want to read about this thing, it all depends. It's been around for so long. It's been around from 1894 all the way up to like modern times, like into the 60s and 70s. I'm pretty sure, and then I guess versions of it even carried through right through till today. So it just all depends on what little niche out of that history you want to see. But I would check out the patents, John Browning's patents. It's just 2 pictures and a couple of pages of text. That's it. And that covered. That's one of the things I like about Browning's patents, even too, is that they were very clear and concise as to what exactly they were, what separated them, or what specific design he was patenting. I've read a lot of these patents where there's like a little change and a little thing that a guy invented, his own little version of something, and it's literally like 40 pages long, or it's almost like they're desperately trying to make it look like it's so separated in design from what came before it, when it's really only a very slight difference, you know what I mean? Whereas Browning's patents were like, they were revolutionary. They changed everything, and they were so far, they were just so far advanced from what everybody else was doing that you would think that that's where the 40 or 50 pages would come in, but they were just very clear and concise, like a page and a half, 2 pages long, with a couple of pictures that showed the design, and that was it. Maybe I'll take down the camera and I'll just prop up a little tripod, and I'll put these up and just do a couple of minutes just showing you them. I think you'll dig it. All right, so for now, just in case I don't put those up, no, I'm going to do it. Let's switch over to the patent drawings and check it out. If you have a different computer like a laptop or a phone or something like that on the side that you can follow along with, just in case you can't see too well on it, we'll do that. But I'm going to switch over now and set up over there. See you in a second. All right, we're back. Now here we are. I'm sorry if the camera shakes. There's some kind of glitch with the iPhone's camera, and I can't even, if I start thinking about it, I'll just smash my phone. So, but I do apologize if you see any shaking. But here's the patents. This again is patent 524702 from August 21st, 1984, patented by John Browning. And once again, I'll show you. I made a video on these patents, and I swear to God, it has like 10 hits. Like, nobody really seems to care, but you know what? This is what I enjoy. I enjoy looking at the guns, and I enjoy examining how they work, the designs, and what went into setting them apart, and how things advanced through the years. I like to look at that stuff, and if nobody else does, then sorry. So we could rotate these things, so since it's drawn with the gun kind of like in a weird position, we'll rotate it to get a better look. Now you see, when you look at these photos, I'll give you a little heads up here. When you look at these numbers and letters, they're very important. It'll have like an H with a little 1. This is like a lowercase g here with a 2 next to it. You see what I mean? So the patent guy, the guy that did the drawing of it, he labels these things so that later on in the text
he could talk about them. See, this is figure 1, and he'll reference figure 1. And by the way, it shows you they have to sign these. See, it says witnesses. The witnesses have to sign these, and this is like serious business. This was the actual drawings, the actual stuff that John Browning had sitting out in front of him, probably rolled out in front of him with, weights on either side to hold the paper from crinkling back shut. You can just imagine that, and pour it over these things by candlelight at night, and lanterns. It's interesting. Here's that locking lug here with that button that we were looking at before, and here's the loading. This might be upside down. This might be, no, this is the loading port, like where the rounds come in from, and this is where the breech where they're getting fed. And it's showing mortises here, and see all of these things, all these little niches, every little thing is labeled, and in there, we'll get to the text later, it'll definitely show you. This is from the top of the bolt. Here's the hammer, the lock, that locking bolt that slid up and down. Its pivot points here that it shows you. The bolt, the firing pin, this is the extractor. I'm sorry, the extractor running down the center here. It's on the top. The breech here, and then here, this is the important part here. This is the area where this thing's special design. For sure, there's a huge part of it is that this tilting mechanism here allows. This is the elevator. It doesn't just run up and down and actually, see this pin right here? It actually pivots on this pin, so it just folds down and folds up, pivoting on this pin, and takes it around and lifts it up. Then the bolt catches it and feeds it in. So it's doing it at an angle, and you can see by this being able to drop down below the receiver at an angle like this with these two pieces. See, these two pieces work in conjunction with each other when it opens, is what allows this to come back far enough, this arm here connected to the lever, to come back far enough to allow this elevator to pivot back to be able to supply around this large in a small space to the receiver. And this is how these things come from the patent office. They say exactly who the person is, what company they're working for, and this is, it says here, John M. Browning of Ogden, Utah Territory, a signer to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company of New Haven, Connecticut. So I'm not well versed with these things to know exactly what a signer means when he's coming up with a patent, or it's, I don't know what contingency it is that he's connected to Winchester for the patent, whatever. I'm not really sure, but I know that it was the owner of Winchester that really used to guide Browning, I think, to do a lot of these patents. From what I've read, he's the guy that put it in his ear, like, patent everything. This is, and it actually worked against him when Browning kind of stopped working with the guy. But it shows when the application was filed and then when it was granted. So this was filed January 19th, 1894, and was granted August 21st, 1894. So you see, it even takes a while for it to go through the whole rigmarole. And they start off this way: to all whom it may concern, be it known that I, John M. Browning of Ogden, in the county of Weber and the territory of Utah, have invented a new improvement in magazine firearms. And I do hereby declare the following, when taken in connection with accompanying drawings and letters and figures of reference marked therein, to be a clear, full, exact description of the same, and which said drawings constitute part of this specification and represent in, and then it breaks it down. In figure 1, a broken view, partly in section or whatever, it'll show you I don't know how close I'd have to get for you to be able to read this from there, but you see it's referencing here and here. See how it's referencing these E's with the exponent mark and the lowercase letters. It's breaking down every single part. And you see here, at the very beginning too, it breaks it down very concisely. It says, my invention relates to an improvement in magazine firearms, the object being to produce a simple, compact, safe, and reliable gun in which the number of parts and the liability to derangement are reduced, which is constructed with particular reference to avoiding the choking of the gun by the incorrect presentation of a cartridge, or the failure of a cartridge to be properly handled by the breech mechanism, and which is designed to adapt the gun to take a longer cartridge than has heretofore been available to use in a similar gun having a receiver of the same length. So that was the big deal with this gun. The big deal with this gun was that a receiver of this size was able to handle a cartridge of this length. That everybody back then, if you wanted a large caliber rifle bullet, you had a big, huge rifle like the 1886 was. You've seen that thing. We did a video on it. It weighs like 40 pounds, and they were huge. And if you wanted a carbine that was smaller and easier to carry around, and you slipped it in a little holster thing like that was on your horse or whatever, and the thing wasn't crazy heavy and it was maneuverable and easy to pull out and shoot at a deer or something like that. You had pistol cartridges or smaller cartridges, so now, all right, you're faster with it, it's lighter, it's more manageable, but now you're sacrificing power, and maybe you can't take down a deer with it or whatever. So this was a huge improvement at the time that was really just combining larger rifle rounds and powerful rounds that nobody would be able to manage these cartridges and without exploding these smaller designs. And he figured out a way how to make it strong and how to make it feed properly to be able to handle cartridges like that with this patent. This angled piece that drops down out of the receiver right here. This did it all. This was worlds apart from what anybody else was doing at the time. You know what I mean? This was revolutionary, and that's definitely what set John Browning apart from everybody else. So I like this. I like going over these patent drawings. Unfortunately, I did a video on like the patent drawings, like specifically or whatever, and I think the thing has like 20 views. I don't know why people aren't into that. I guess they just want to like see the gun and see somebody shoot some cans, and you know. And I could definitely understand. I definitely get a big kick out of watching Hickok 45 talk and shoot. But at the end of the day, when my gun is sitting in front of me, I go to the range and I could shoot it for a few minutes and shoot some rounds and have some fun with it. But the real what really draws me to this hobby is examining these patents and how a guy like John Browning figured this out. Like, what was around before it? What was around after it? What step did he take next? You know what I mean? Who came along to improve on somebody else's design? Or if somebody else wanted to make something similar but they couldn't infringe on patents, what angle did they take so that their design was different enough where it was considered an alternate way of doing the same thing, you know what I mean? And not infringing on the patents, you know. And you see a lot of that with stuff that John Browning kind of cornered the markets with a lot of these very pivotal designs, and then a lot of other guys were scrambling to be like, just to put something out that functioned similarly but didn't infringe on his patents, that didn't specifically do the things that he invented. I mean, the freaking guy invented the bolt handle and patented that, and nobody for a bunch of years could even put a handle on the bolt because controlling the bolt all of a sudden became a big thing with these once we got to semi-automatic, and John Browning was the first guy to put a bolt handle on the bolt so you could manipulate it just directly with your hand and a knob. And then when other people had to do something similar, they couldn't infringe on his patent, so they had to kind of go about doing things their own way. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to see that too. Well, anyway, don't mean to go on and on. It's good to be back, talk to you guys for a little while. Let's see what direction I'm going to head in now. I appreciate your comments and a lot of the conversations that have been going on some of my videos. I've been finding it pretty interesting. And this year has just been a year of really getting very meticulous with my collection and tracking down parts and working on things. And I've just been so busy with that I've been neglecting you guys. But I'm going to really sit down, take a look at what I got here and what direction I could move in to show you guys something new. And I'll figure out something cool, and there we will be. So I'll see all you guys later. Okay, quickly, one more thing. I just wanted to show you guys that if you really get into these designs and stuff like that, you'll see this is the Browning single shot, okay? 1885. This patent was from, see, it says it down here, 1879. So this patent from 1879, we did the 1886 and the 1894 just now. How familiar does that look? Where these two locking lugs fitting inside mortises like that, you see? This is Browning took this patent. This is a patented idea here now. And he's taking this patent and adapting that to these large bore rifles. So you can't just discredit these 22s and say how pivotal are these designs really. It's just a silly 22 short single shot rifle, but this is where it all began for him, and he was already on his way to designing the 1886 and the 1894. This is the structure, the infrastructure that started the ball rolling for the Browning brothers. You can see those two locking lugs right there. It's very, very similar to what you'd see on the 1886 and the 1894. And that was in 1879. Yep.